Yeah, if you can cut your price in half.
Right. Sometimes it's dramatic.
Especially with something like that. Everybody's so conditioned that next year a new one's coming out that the sales drop off because everybody's waiting.
One thing we see people thinking about all the time is, do I or do I not buy that new toy yet? And part of the decision-making process is, well, you know, maybe the company's going to come out with a new model pretty soon. And so if I don't want to buy this one and then have it obsolete, you know, in a month or two or whatever. And it's a fear that is justified, right? I mean, you know, it happens, and it's probably happened to everybody at some point. Sooner or later, it's going to happen to you if it hasn't, you know? And,
well, you see with like Apple products, there's websites that track the release times of different products. And so you know, well, last time the iPhone was released on this day, so we expect a new one here. And you look at historical trends, whatever, you draw conclusions. And you could kind of sort of judge based on how old the product is and how often they were historically changed. You could judge whether or not there's likely one in the future. But with headphones, a little bit less reliable than phone releases have ended up being. So I could see the trouble, right? A lot of times people say, well, this has been out a long time, so I wouldn't buy it. Or there's a new one coming out. And I don't know where people get this information, because we have people talking that our company, Abyss, are coming out with some sort of new thing in the future. And
it's like news to
we're
us.
unaware of it, right? So
really.
It's very curious that people are getting this information somehow, because...
Well, it's called a rumor. The rumor mill.
Yeah, who knows where those start, huh?
Yeah. Somebody starts and it's like, they're going to come out with a new 1266. It's like, we're not even working on that right now. We're not even thinking about it.
Right, because people draw conclusions. Like when Diana TC came out, everyone said, well, logically it follows that a new 1266 is coming out.
Yeah.
It's not really how it works.
Not necessarily, no.
But yeah.
I mean,
clarification.
given long enough span of time, something new eventually will come out probably, but
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's not, and that's the thing. I think people think that they're stuck on a certain period of time. And maybe it's because they know they've seen other companies change it up every year, or, you know, so on and so on. And I mean, like one thing you can look at is the maturity level of the company, like how long they've been around. And like, you know, and also their track record, right? And you look at companies and go, well, you know, do they come out like Apple, right? They come out with a phone every year. It's almost a given, right? You know it's going to happen. So there's no, you don't even have to think about it. Are you going to wait or not? Do you need a phone now, or are you going to wait till the fall, right? Or whatever. And other companies are like, it's more, way more random. And I mean, you know, companies like Apple might have to do that, obviously, because it's high tech. They're in a huge industry. They're selling hundreds of millions of pieces. Whole different ball game, right? And they've probably figured out, I think most companies look at sales, like where do sales begin to drop off with a product, you know, and they probably know that their sales cycle, or their cycle time for a product is X.
Especially with something like that. Everybody's so conditioned that next year a new one's coming out that the sales drop off because everybody's waiting. Once it gets to a month or two before a new one comes out, sales drop off, you know.
It's kind of, what do you call it, self-imposed.
Yeah. With headphones, it's a little different, though. With headphones, a lot of times, especially with more mature companies, they most likely are looking at sales. They're looking at, in the market, is the product still relevant? Are people still looking at this product in a desirable light that they want to purchase it? And some companies also lower the price over time if sales start to slow, generally speaking. Maybe they have enough margin in it where they feel that's justified, or maybe they just have such a big factory running these things. That's, at the time, the easiest way to improve the sales. Because to some companies, that's a really big factor. It depends how big you are.
Or like you said, they have so many pieces, they're eliminating inventory before
they're trying to get rid of them.
I mean, it's just like, I mean, given Apple, same thing. Like last year's model gets cheaper when the new one comes out. So some people actually wait for that. They're like, well, I know I can get this one cheaper if I wait in like 2 months.
That's a fair point too. Yeah, because generally speaking, a new model makes the old model.
I mean, it might not happen.
Well, especially not always, if you're 3-4 gens back.
Well, yeah. Occasionally, it actually increases the value of the old models.
Yeah.
But that's rare. There's definitely multiple approaches to this, and that's kind of the trouble. From the consumer side, unless you've been looking at these things for many years, it's hard to gauge when a new product is expected, because sometimes companies release products because of business reasons, and other times they release it because they found a new cool thing to do. They have this new way of making a thing. They found an improvement, and it's so significant they want to call it a new product. And other times it's just been enough time, and they figure, well, spend a year, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, and let's release a new product. Let's freshen this one up. So it's kind of hard from the outside to figure when's the best time to buy.
You got some other companies that like, we haven't changed this in 20 years.
Yeah, really. No need.
No, yeah.
It still does the same thing it did then, and it's doing now, and ain't no problem with what it does. You know?
Sometimes you get that.
In electronics, that's not the case.
Well, yeah.
Very
like
rarely
any
the case.
cutting edge things. Yeah.
Can you think of anything you're using electronics that you used 20 years ago? I mean, I guess with
that you're still using?
the stereo system I have is pretty old at this point.
That's true.
In fact, I'm looking at upgrading the 2-channel side of it for a change.
There's very little that I would use that's 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's just inevitably there's
there's
newer things that
anything
are cheaper
with technology.
or better.
Yeah, I was gonna say receivers, but no, because like 10 years and you didn't do like you want all the new
Yeah,
standards.
the HDMI
and
wasn't in the older ones. Yeah, they were obsoleted. Obsolescence occurred because the technology changed dramatically.
That's most common, right? A lot of times you have something that works fine and serves your purposes, and in many years it still will, but yet things change around your device that makes this device no longer relevant. You no longer have a feature, an accessory, or your computer can't update the software to the latest version anymore. It's not supported. There's a new thing that doesn't run on it anymore or whatever.
Well, I had a multi-channel processor in my multi-channel system, and it reached a point where I couldn't deal with it anymore because it didn't have any HDMI inputs.
Right.
It had 9 SPDIF inputs. It had optical. It had no HDMI. It's like, well, you reach a point where it just ain't working anymore. It just ain't working for you. You can't adapt it. You know.
The thing is like, that cycle's getting shorter though now because everything is like advancing quicker. Because like if you have like a 1971 analog receiver, you can still use it today, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, it'd be the same as it was then.
AM, FM.
Right.
Yeah. Radio stations still exist.
But when you start talking about anything with HDMI,
it is trouble because we're seeing heavy integration of a lot of new features into a lot of products, and that tends to inevitably mean that your product is outdated faster. And that is something I find a little curious with headphones, especially in high-end headphones. They shockingly both get outdated fast and very slow. Depends on your perspective. Because there's a lot of people that are totally happy buying a previous generation flagship headphone, and to them it's their end game and it's spectacular, and oftentimes they get a decent price on it, so they're happy with that.
Yeah, if you can cut your price in half.
Right. Sometimes it's dramatic.
You know, it just came out a year or two ago.
Yeah, right. So that's pretty great in that regard. But other times, some people are a little displeased that a new model comes out, and now they feel compelled to upgrade. And I guess it depends on the person, right? Because plenty of people are happy with a year-old model. Doesn't matter to them. Other people feel like they have no choice but to replace it. And that's kind of the biggest issue. Yeah,
and some people comment on it. Like you see people go, well, what's different today than yesterday? You liked it yesterday.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, because there's another model out, you don't like it anymore. And
right.
It is definitely, it makes you retrospect and go, well, obviously, it's a mental issue, right? You're getting past, you're like, well, you always got to have the latest and greatest thing. And, someone mentioned that to me a long time ago. Like this. It's really about, it tends to happen, maybe it happens at every level, but I know the word flagship, let's say you had the best speaker that a manufacturer had, like Wilson Audio has $250,000 pair of speakers, right? And you own them. And you got them because at the time, that was the most expensive thing they had, and that's what you wanted, the most expensive thing. Now they got a new most expensive thing.
They do actually.
Yeah, right. And that happens, right? So now you no longer have the title. You don't have the ability to say, I have the most expensive thing they make. And that's part of it too with some people. They want not only the latest,
it's not even
but
the performance
best the company makes.
Yeah.
And it isn't even a function of how much better it is. It's the fact that it exists, and they want it. And that's okay. That's what makes the world go around. That's beautiful, But that's one person's attitude. Where other people go, "Are you crazy? You just got that. You paid that much money. Now you want another one? Well, yeah. Why not? If you can afford it, who cares, right?"
Some people could justify it very easily. They say, "Well, a new product came out, cool, but I'm still happy with the one I have, so it doesn't matter to me." And to other people, it's upsetting. So I suppose it really depends on you as a person. And if you're the type of person that knows you need to have the latest and the greatest, I would always buy closer to launch. But realize that, of course, inevitably, maybe in 6 months, 2 years, 3, 5 years, there's going to be a replacement. And it's hard to know when. It really depends on the company.
I could think of a solution to this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. If you're buying into a company that's mature and has had product line out there for a while, you trust a new model when it comes out. Get it right away. Because now the upgrade-itis thing is as far out as you could possibly get. That model just came out.
Right.
Yeah.
You got as long as you're going to have the next model comes out, so get it. You're done. That solves the whole fear issue, where if you wait and wait and wait and wait, obviously as you wait longer, you push that closer to the time where it might become obsolete.
That's one approach, but you also have a lot of the other approach. The people that say, well, I'm going to wait because not enough reviews came out, or there's this new thing that's supposed to come out in the future. There's this new whatever that people are talking about that's going to be the latest and the greatest, right?
So a company might come out with something else.
And that's difficult. That really adds a new layer of complexity, because now not only you're worried about the product you're going to buy being replaced, you're worried about a product coming out from another company that makes your product obsolete. Right, it's so vastly superior, and you see this all the time.
Remember when computers used to be like that?
It's back again. Don't you worry. It's severe right now.
I mean, it was crazy. You wouldn't want to get a new computer thinking there's a new one, there's a new processor coming out.
Yeah,
and that all stalled for years now.
And there's been a long span where that wasn't the case. But the fun thing is now that's back.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of kind of newcomers that haven't experienced that yet. That they're saying, "Well, I just got this, and now there's this new thing that's 23% better." Well, that's actually kind of good, because as long as you always get that, as long as every 6 months a new thing's coming out, then you never need to wait. It kind of makes that waiting obsolete, because there's always going to be something better on the horizon. So waiting is pointless. You'll never buy a thing, right?
Yeah.
Buy it when it comes out, and it is what it is. But then you need to trust that it's going to be good if you're buying it when it comes out, because inevitably you have that risk that it's not.
Well, the other thing we ran into now is that everything's pretty good at this point. So waiting a little longer, it's not like you're
not hurting,
struggling. Yeah.
Sometimes it burns a little bit. New thing comes out and it's unexpectedly soon, and it's a lot better than what you had or whatever. But the reality is it's pretty much always going to be that way. There's always going to be a new thing comes out.
I'm seeing a lot of people now that are owning multiple headphones, which isn't really new, but they own all the flagships, and then they just sell off what they don't like. I mean, that's one way to roll through it. Just get all the new ones, and if you don't like it, sell it. And of course, you're going to take a hit, but if you're spending 20, 25 grand on headphones, big deal. So what are you losing? I mean, you're not worried about the hit. That you're trying everything.
You got to figure it out as soon as possible to maintain value.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
that's probably the best approach, because then it guarantees that you get a long span of time. Brand new product. You could try it in your leisure. You could try it in all different gear. Do whatever you want with it. It's your headphone.
And figure out what you like, and bam, now you're good till that whole next round of stuff comes out from all the companies, right?
Yeah.
So that's another way to do it.
It's also the most expensive way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the most expensive way, but it does get it. It certainly is a way to rock through it, and I'm seeing that a lot. And people will make their decision based on actually owning them, which is really the way to go. Borrowing stuff, it's like you don't really get it in a couple weeks.
I was just thinking, nobody does that with phones, I don't think, really. I bought
That's true.
5 different phones. I'm going to use each one and see which one I like.
Well, you see that with some extreme tech enthusiasts, but that is a minority.
Yeah.
The one issue I have with people that borrow headphones, and you see this time and time again on forums, they borrow a headphone, they say that this is this particular model headphone. But some companies like us have continual iterative improvements. So the product you bought isn't necessarily entirely representative, or the product you borrowed isn't necessarily representative of the product you would buy if you were to buy that product new. And that's one issue. You see this with a handful of companies, kind of like more techie companies, I guess, do the same thing. Like you look at like Tesla as a good example.
Well, there's revs.
Yeah.
Like electronics.
Things continually iterate.
All manufacturers usually have multiple revs. The original model may not be exactly the same as there could be Rev G on PC boards, and that means it started with A, right? So figure that out number-wise, and you see that a lot with all manufacturers. And, you know, yeah, even with electronics, I see it where people go, oh, you know, this amp sounds like that. And it's like, well, what vintage is it? You know, well, you know, I got it when it was new. I said, well, how do you know they didn't change it since? So now reviewers and people that own the current Rev are talking about it and saying it's the greatest thing. So if someone goes out and buys a used one, that's the Rev A.
It's difficult
and
to
it's
track.
not the same. It's not necessarily the same. Might have issues, might do this fun. I mean, you know, you just don't know what you're dealing with. But
Well,
I see this all the time where it's like you're not really comparing apples to apples unless you get the new product.
Speaking of apples, yeah, Apple's the one that really with like iPads, just calling them iPad. You're like, I don't even know. I own this one. I don't even know which one it is. You know?
I have no idea
it's like I don't know.
Past Gen 2, I lost
like,
it.
So confusing.
Yeah, right.
That's a different
Well,
problem.
they even stopped that now, right? They don't even know, right? They just
just like
it's just
iPad.
it's a model number.
Well, they started. It's like, ooh, the new iPad. It's like, yeah, but you only could do that for so long.
That's the only way you know.
Yeah.
There's always a lot of complex reasons why companies would do this, but there's been a somewhat recent trend in things like computer parts, where for whatever reason manufacturers have, say, an issue getting a particular component, and so they make the same thing with a slightly different part, and they call it the same.
Right.
But it performs
They have to
differently.
re-engineer
right?
it to work with the new part.
They don't tell you there's anything different, but it actually performs slightly differently.
Sometimes it could be better, but
it could be better, but it could be worse, and they don't advertise it.
Right.
And it's kind of understandable, but also a problem that they don't say that. And sometimes it's pretty severe. Sometimes the differences can be really remarkable, and it's a real issue as a consumer because you don't really you're not tracking these.
Well,
things
particularly if
closely.
you're after like a certain feature set or something that that you bought it for because everyone said it does this well, and now you buy it and it doesn't do it well. And it's like, okay, so was everybody wrong, or did something change, or both? But anyway, yeah. I mean, bottom line is that again, tends to be the more mature the company, the less revs you're going to have, if any. Because if you've already done this numerous times, like for example, let's say on our early model we rocked through 50 revs. Which I'm just making a number up. I don't even freaking know. But it's most of the revs have nothing to do with sonics.
Right.
Might be fit and finish. Might be something. The way the screw tightened, longevity. Who knows? But you rock through 50. So now you have that under your belt. Those 50 revs. So when you come out with another model, all that stuff that you learned about is inherent. It's part of your DNA in the company.
They keep carrying that forward.
Yeah. So you don't need to go through all that again. You did all that. And so, as you go through different models and over time, that those things tend to weed themselves out because you already know the pitfalls involved in manufacturing these products.
They certainly do. However, the flip side of that is you see people on forums and whatnot talking about this brand has this issue. And maybe it did, but
it's like a
things
stereotype.
can change, right?
Right.
And that's kind of an issue. There's a lot of companies that have that experience where the companies that continually iterate and improve things, again, Tesla is a pretty good example because they're one of the most extreme in this case. They change things all the time, and they say nothing about it. They don't tell you. And people say, well, it has this issue, it does this wrong, or this is bad on this car. And maybe that was fixed 3 years ago, but this thing continues to be talked about over and over.
It continues to go as if it's a current issue when the issue was resolved long ago. Yeah, we see that a lot. It happens with every company, and it's. I don't know what it is. There's certain people that like to regurgitate history forever, and it's like, well, this is now that it was then, and it's. I don't know what it is about people. I don't know what it is. But anyway, bottom line is that it's something to be aware of that, with the buying the current model right away, it's always possible you run into something that's changed down the road, but. I know, for example, with our Dyna TC, we just came out with that, right? We haven't changed anything since we came out with it. Nothing.
No.
Done. We already knew we've gone through a number of iterations of Dianas, and at this point, we had it down. When it was done, it was done. Anyway, you could see the pitfalls and the fears that people have because they've gone through this before with various products, and sometimes they're obsolete, sometimes they make changes, sometimes all kinds of reasons why people think they got burned in the past because they jumped into something, and it's true. It just depends, So it depends on who you're dealing with, the company and the products and blah, blah, blah. And everything's a judgment call in life. That's the way it works.
It's a trade-off, though, because your options are either buy right away, and then, well, you are guaranteeing you have the maximum amount of time before it changes, but you also have the option of it potentially having a running change that improves it, or there's a new color option, or a change in price, or whatever. There could be a whole bunch of magnitude of factors that makes your product less exciting shorter if you buy it early. So kind of depends on the person. To some people, they're willing to wait months and buy after all the reviews come out and that sort of thing. Other people, I think it's best probably just to buy it right away. If you trust the company, you like the product, I think for the most part, that's not a bad method, because even if you don't like it, usually resells high for a long time when the product first comes out. So you could always resell it for nearly what you paid.
Yeah, and at that level,
it's not so bad.
It certainly does maximize the time you have with that product before you need to think about this over again. Think about this whole process over again, you know. So, I mean, even if you wait a few months or so, I get that. You know, you say listen, wait a couple of reviews.
Yeah, that's not
a
bad method.
You know, yeah. I mean, you're the longevity's there with the product, assuming you're going to keep it after you get it. So, yeah, it's not a bad. I think that's the safest way to go. You know, I don't know. I'm looking at like Bowers and Wilkins. I'm looking at I want to get their 802s and stuff. I've had the same speakers for 20 some years, and I know their sound. They're on the D4, the fourth iteration of their Diamond tweeters, and I thought the D3 was pretty good. So I'm like, yeah, I think I'm ready for that. You know, so I've waited generations through this, and they've refined it. And I mean, the look and the machine, all the processes you see they go through to make a speaker. I think it's a bargain at this point. And I'm not trying to pump Bowers and Wilkins. I'm just saying that. You know, I worked for the company in the mid-'80s. I've watched their product lines mature and grow. I've owned their products. We've owned their products.
Yeah.
We've bought their products. We have a dealer locally that retails or sells their products. We get to hear everything they've made, right? So we it's one of those speakers, just like headphones, that we've watched mature over the years.
Yeah, and they've changed a lot since the 80s.
The whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Every nut, bolt, and screw. You know, and it's cool to see this current line. I'm actually ready to take the leap on a new pair of speakers, which I never really do with speakers much too often. But yeah,
well, you got to go hear them.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing that in this coming week. I'm going there because they said they got them all now, all the models and stuff, and set up in the store.
One thing I found to be rather effective in the right setting is ask an engineer that works reasonably high up at the company what they think about the product.
Yeah.
It's shocking how...
That's not always the easiest thing.
It's not always possible, right? But it's shocking to me how almost universally honest the engineers can be.
Yeah, they tend to be that way.
And they'll tell you...
Well, if there's nobody there to tell them not to say anything.
Yeah.
Right. I did this a few times, and it's surprisingly effective. A lot of times these people tell you, well, we're working on this thing, and in a few months or whatever, we expect to fix this problem that nobody really talks about or knows about. But surprisingly enough, if you could actually manage to do that, that's a pretty cool way to do it. A lot of times, if an engineer has confidence in the design, if they think it's a great product, it's a good time to buy.
Yeah.
Or if you see they're like excited about,
if they're excited about it, yeah, right, definitely. Because sometimes it'll just be like,
so they'll be proud to tell you about what they did.
Right.
Well, assuming they just didn't come out of college and this is their first project.
Well,
if they've been working at the company a while.
They've had to be working on the thing.
Yeah.
They got some history.
They're experienced. Yeah. Then usually that's actually a pretty good method. So if you could have a chat with somebody that really knows what they're talking about, that works at the company.
Unfortunately, they usually keep those guys away from the telephone.
That's right. A lot of times they're too honest.
Yeah, they're kind of busy making things.
Well, that's
But
they don't know how to lie.
But yeah, right. Or you get the guy that does answer the phone. That's in engineering, the lead guy or whatever. And he's experienced and he's excited about something. That could tell you something about it too. That he's actually excited about it.
If it's not a sales
guys like that don't get excited too often.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you've seen it all. You've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or even a sales engineer, even though they are sales. A lot of guys aren't sales. They're just engineers that answer the phone.
Right.
You know? So they're not pushing anything on you. They're just telling you the way it is.
Well, especially like a smaller company, though, you run into that where it's like, well, the guy that's making something is answering the phone sometimes,
Sometimes I call companies up asking technical questions about a random product or whatever. And they have no interest. They don't care. They know nothing about the product, right? And that's kind of off-putting. But then occasionally you call up a company and they're excited about this one particular product. And sometimes they could even sell you on something you didn't know you wanted because they're so excited. They think it's the greatest, right? And if you could get that experience, it's kind of a good option. So that's one of the cool things about going to shows.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes you get that.
You usually are talking to an engineer. Or
You could be talking to someone that really
higher
knows
ups
the
or
product.
the owners. Yeah.
You could get an impression. Do they think this is a good product?
Yep.
I think that's powerful.
Yeah, agreed. So there you go. I think maybe we solved the dilemma for some people
Well,
and created a whole new one for
Yeah,
others.
definitely,
Well,
yeah.
typical what we do here. Yeah, that's what we do.
Right. Go hold a gun to the engineer's head and
yeah,
get all the
What do you
answers you
think?
need. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good method.
Yeah, try that. Might work.
Hmm.
Well, right here you got everybody right here at
Yeah.
one table. So here we go. G2G. Right
Yeah, well, I guess at like Apple, you got 10,000 engineers working on a project. Well,
Yeah.
everybody's
It's
got
a little
some-
harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
They're
think you're gonna
excited
talk
about
to
this
them.
like one
Yeah.
thing they changed.
Oh, I
or
worked on
whatever.
the screw. Oh.
Yeah, oh, it's a nice.
Yeah, the
screw.
most excitement you'll see is when they do those big shows and they're on the stage
Yeah.
and that's it. That's the first and last time you'll talk to them that year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So-
but those guys are excited about everything they've ever done.
Well,
so,
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
they have to be.
right.
Otherwise, you'd have
It's
to.
pretty much their job.
Yeah, that's their job. Yeah, they're trained.
Mm.
We got to get back to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, on that note, as usual, we have to say au revoir. That's French. Tish, that's French. Take care,
Okay.
everybody. Thumbs us up. Take care.